A new report says Amazon is looking to avoid the blame for raising prices as a result of President Trump's new tariffs. This isn't a surprise, especially since Reuters recently wrote that Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. A global shift is underway, reshaping the flow of commerce in ways few could have predicted. At the heart of this storm is Amazon, the company that built its empire on speed, scale, and affordability. But in early 2025, a sweeping wave of tariffs from the Trump administration crashed into international trade. It shook the foundations of global supply chains. Prices climbed, businesses scrambled, and households felt the sting as ordinary goods grew harder to reach. Yet, while many companies struggled to survive, Amazon began charting a course of its own. Beneath the surface of the crisis, it quietly set in motion a transformation so vast it altered the very geography of trade. In April 2025, the White House pulled the trigger. The announcement was an earthquake, a sweeping tariff plan with a 10% duty on all imports. But the real bombshell was aimed at China. Goods from the world's manufacturing hub were now saddled with a jaw-dropping 145% tariff. Overnight, the foundation of global trade was thrown off balance. For companies tied to Chinese manufacturing, it wasn't a tax, it was a blockade. Amazon was at the center of the storm. Controlling about 40% of all online retail in the US, its supply network was an anchor tied directly to China. The company faced an impossible choice: absorb billions in costs and bleed money, or pass them to customers and destroy trust. So it chose a third option: adapt instantly. What followed was a corporate survival drill carried out at lightning speed. Amazon ripped up over $13 billion in supply chain deals almost overnight. Long-standing relationships with Chinese factories evaporated. In their place, new partners in Mexico, India, and Vietnam rose instantly. Entire shipping routes were redrawn. Warehouses were built at a record pace in Mexico. Factories in Vietnam and India were flooded with new orders. For these countries, Amazon's realignment was transformative. Jobs multiplied and exports surged. But the story in the United States was far less hopeful. The impact was felt first at America's ports. Los Angeles and Long Beach saw their container traffic collapse by over 20%. Every dip meant fewer hours for dock workers, fewer jobs for truckers, and less work for warehouse crews. The tariffs, sold as a way to protect American jobs, ended up wiping out thousands of them. Meanwhile, American families faced their own fallout. At first, Amazon shielded shoppers from price hikes, but by early 2026, the company could no longer carry the burden alone. Prices on everyday goods, electronics, clothing, home essentials, were projected to rise 10 to 20%. For households already squeezed by inflation, this meant hundreds of extra dollars spent each year. And Amazon wasn't alone. Walmart, Target, and Home Depot all reported soaring costs and warned of higher prices. Beyond economics, the geopolitical stakes were immense. Washington had hoped to weaken China's manufacturing dominance, and in some ways, it worked. But Beijing was not standing still. Chinese exporters quickly diversified, building ties with Asia, Europe, and Africa. America lost leverage. As Amazon and others invested heavily in alternative hubs, global trade began to flow around America rather than through it. The very policies meant to secure economic leadership risked accelerating its decline. By the close of 2025, the new reality was clear. The once bustling ports of California stood quieter. Mexico's warehouses ran hot with activity. Vietnamese factories churned at full capacity. American shoppers, meanwhile, braced for higher bills. Amazon's monumental shift proved how quickly a giant can adapt when survival is on the line. But it also showed the limits of protectionism. Tariffs didn't force production back to America. They forced companies to rewire supply chains elsewhere, often leaving American workers and consumers worse off. This was the paradox of the tariff war. For every job gained, dozens disappeared. For every product spared, dozens more became more expensive. Amazon's survival strategy, while brilliant, exposed how vulnerable the entire system had become. The dust has still not settled. The question remains: had the country sacrificed its long-term influence over global trade for the illusion of short-term strength?